Hey guys, with today's technique demonstration and instruction, we're going to start out with certain movements that I believe are very much important to be able to master before you apply today's techniques. Number one is that a simple ab workout. My hands and rotation of my hips, being able to touch my toes on one end and the other. So we go 1, 2, but on the second or third, whenever you've gained the momentum, we want to be able to sit up. 1, 2, 3, up onto our elbow, up onto our elbow. As a result, let's go ahead and review how we can get up onto our elbow and then an extension of our arm. If ever I'm here, one leg down, same side out. Here we are. Now, simply utilizing an elbow down towards the ribs, pushing off my leg. Just like that. Side, extension of my leg, up to my elbow. Then, extension with my arm, and we're in this position here. So far, touching our toes, my hips are off the mat, they are not necessarily flat. 2, and then third, up to our elbow, and from there, extension, hip thrust. Number 2 is the practice of getting onto our elbow. Always protecting ourselves. Extension, up to my elbow, hip thrust to my palm. And number 3 is your basic hip thrust. So when we get up onto our elbow, go ahead and shoot our hips, and we have accomplished our main goals. I believe these 3 will be very much important for our skill development for the techniques of technique. Let's go ahead and practice some of our foundational movements that we just work on and implement them into our techniques. So I'm here with Abdurrahman, my partner. The first exercise we showed was the movement of our arms in that ab exercise. That is directly related to our hip thrust, hip sweep technique. If my partner has ever touched the mat on one side, especially if it is on both sides, I should have the opportunity to set up this movement with ease. Simply reaching and going over the far shoulder. So my leg would be in a closed guard, we would open up. I would then extend my arm at an angle and shoot my hips forward. So my hip goes to the side. Now my elbow comes up and my arm shoots forward. Up to my palm. In this position, my hip is constantly going to the outside hip as if my glutes are connected to his own thighs. Now my hand will reach to pummel and pull his arm across while my leg drops just enough to carry my hip thrust motion forward and turning at an angle. And we end up in our traditional position. One more time. I'm in this position here. Let's assume we were able to break the arms and they're touching the mat or outside of the hip line. All we need to do now is work on our elbow motion, the extension of our abdomen, and getting a hip connected to my partner's hip. So my hip is on the inside, out to the side, arm out, shoot up. I want to connect my own hip to my partner's hip. As much as possible out to the side while extending my arm. Here we are. Knee trap, hip thrust, rotation. Drop and stabilize. Okay, let's work on our hip thrust sweep in a circumstance where our partner does a good job holding our hips down. Remember, these are building blocks to the techniques we'll be working on today from our side scissor position. I'm here with Abdurrahman. Okay, this time the difference is Abdurrahman does a good job controlling my lapels and locking my hips in. So now if I shoot to one side, it's hard. Right? I come up like this, he pushes me down, it's hard to hip thrust. I can't connect my own hips to Abdurrahman. So as a result, we will now utilize our momentum and hip shifts, constantly switching between each side, which will give us an angle. Let's look at that in slow motion firsthand. We're here, we shoot our hip to one side, he's holding me down. I switch to the other side, I shrimp, and notice as I'm doing so, his grips are slowly moving on angles. And it will give us an angle to shoot over, which will crunch his own wrist as if we are able to set up a wrist lock. So we're here one more time. He's holding us down. 1, and then immediately shooting to the other side. 2. Notice where his arms have switched. They're now to the side. Now we're in this position, we go through the motion. And remember, everything should be in one motion if possible. So we're here, I'm up on my elbow, I pick up my hips, I go at an angle, drop, shoot my hips forward. Slowly, turning my opponent and getting him out from that position. Let's try that one more time. So grab this angle here. We'll bring this down. Shrimp, shrimp, and up. Here we go. And up. Shrimp, forward, and stabilize. As you can see, Jiu-Jitsu is very much a... Alright, the preemptive steps were seeing the building blocks of our movements, and then an isolation of the movement, and now seeing how these particular tactics and tools can be implemented from our side scissor position we were talking about. In our previous video on the position, we talked about how we can work to someone's back and what things we can utilize from there. In this case, we try to get an offensive tactic from the position without having preemptively in one motion reaching the backside. Let's take an example to some of the things we're talking about here. So I'm here, and now what I'm going to do, Abdurrahman is on this side here, okay? And we're here. Abdurrahman is holding my collar, okay? We work on breaking the grips, whatever brick raping we've been working on. So I could grab a cross sleeve grip, 4 fingers, and my thumb go into his pinky. You see here, his pinky? Thumb into the pinky. Thumb goes into the pinky. Now we use our legs to bridge, just to break it off enough. Now in this position, we want to work on our hip movements. So we switch and we get into our cross scissor position. Hip out with a shrimp, leg come up, and now I'm hugging my partner. In the hug, notice where my head is. It is above his own head. There are times where I will not be able to get my head above his own head. As a result, there are times where my partner, for example, would reach his arm, grab my own collar, and pull my hip down, pulling me down just like that. Okay, so now that we're in this position, let's work on our hip thrust movement we just talked about and see how it can be applied from this particular position here. I'm here with Abdurrahman one more time. Okay, we break the grip, get a cross sleeve grip, shrimp to the side, come up to my elbow. I'm here. In this position, Abdurrahman takes his arm and he reaches and grabs my collar, for example. All we need to do is utilize what we just did in isolation, but apply it here. Okay? So my hand that is controlling his sleeve will now control the arm that came across my body, which is this top arm here. So my arm here switches from the sleeve grip to the same side grip, and now we grab the sleeve grip on the opposite side. We pull it in, we drop our elbow, and we hip thrust forward with our legs and our hips, and switch, and now we're in. Rahman is here, let's switch the angle. Rahman grabs with his other arm, and I'm able to control the sleeve. Everything else will be the same. And we're in. Stabilizing. Rahman is here, please. Here we are. I'm here. I have the option of going to his back if he doesn't do anything. So Abdurrahman takes his arm and he grabs my collar, trying to pull me to the mat. And I see that. Okay? As a result, when we're in this position, we're going to attack the arm that's coming across. He starts to reach across. I grab. That's okay. Now I bump with my hips forward and to the side. Bump and shoot my hips forward. Turn my hips, and we're in. See here? He grabs my collar, yes, I see that. That's our opportunity. Switch my grip. Hip thrust, trapping the legs, bumping. Then kicking my leg, turning, and now we're in. This is an example how mastering an isolated move from one position and utilizing that same move in transition is an indication of an individual who is learning the Unitarian approach to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That is, everything is one and everything is interconnected. Attacking techniques that we can apply in a circumstance where we are being scolded from the bottom, you'll notice that there are a number of things we can do. My goal is that you memorize not necessarily every attack, but actually the system itself. Today's lessons are connected to the prior instructional on the subject, which we will see towards the end of this video, and you can follow that particular link. Here, we will look at other forms of attacks we can do from that position. And remember, we are attacking from one of our main vulnerabilities in the guard, which is when a person, his arm is across the center line for any reason. Right here. Okay, so broken the collar. Control the sleeve. And now we're here to the side. Now that we're in the side, we're going to work on some of the techniques and attacks we can do. So we grab, and we're in this position here. My partner, most probably, in this position, will start to drive back into me knowing that I'm trying to go to his back. And that's a perfect time you can utilize the energy they are pushing forward on. So as he's walking in towards me, my hand is controlling the collar, my arm is controlling the sleeve, his head is starting to come up, he starts to drive into me. So we hip bump forward, he pushes back into us, we drop our arm and pull his arm towards our own knee. In, just like that. Now that it's in, all we need to do as we're controlling the collar is just shrimp. And as we're doing so, you'll see how we can get to the person's back. And now we're in, leg on the hip for now, switching the collar, controlling the wrist, whatever it is we want to do from this position. Let's try that again. As we're working on various attacks we can do from this position. Here we are. Okay, let's go back down a little, buddy. Here we are. Bro, we're in this position here. Okay, my hand is controlling as much as the gi as possible beneath his armpit. Now my partner is driving back into me. This hand that's controlling the near side arm and not the far side is the arm we'll be pushing towards his own knee or my own knee. I'm controlling the sleeve and the collar on this arm here. Look what we're gonna do here. Stay postured, please. Okay, I drop my own elbow and shoot his arm towards his knee. Just like this. Now, controlling the collar and my hips, all we do is shrimp out. Pulling my partner, pulling. And now we're locked. One leg on the hip, bottom leg coming up. And from here we can set up our basic controls if we're looking for them. Whatever they may be. Another option. First option, arm down towards his knee and shrimping my hips. Shrimp, shrimp. Now you see where we are, we're in the back. All you need to do is turn. And you can control your partner going to the back. Bounce, see it? Okay, next option is the arm that we're controlling with the sleeve and the collar here. So all we're going to do is we're going to bump when his arm comes out. Boom. Now we take our inside leg and we set up the triangle. Grab, set,